This is Hezbollah. They're located inside the country of Lebanon and are ranked as the most powerful non-state actor in the entire world. Part of the reason for this is because estimates of the group's fighting strength vary from between 50 to 100,000 troops. There's a widespread belief that they have superior combat power compared to Hamas, even compared to the actual official Lebanese army. It would be like if your local Western Pennsylvania militia group was more powerful than the entire US Army. Since 1997, the United States has considered Hezbollah a terror organization, and the European Union added the militant arm to the list in 2013 while keeping the political arm unsanctioned. This requires us to do a bit of critical thinking and try to separate Hezbollah, the militant group, from the political group, and even further separate how we view Hezbollah from how we view the Lebanese population. This is because Hezbollah has also gained political power and influence over the years, forming a major political party within Lebanon's parliament called Loyalty to the Resistance Bloc. Hezbollah even has its own TV station called Al-Manar, along with a network of clinics, schools, and farms. Today, I want to take as an objective and unbiased analysis of Hezbollah as possible in order to give you all the key critical information that you need to understand this group in detail, and to analyze the following three key questions. How did a relatively small group of revolution-oriented conspirators become arguably the most powerful organization in Lebanon? What capabilities do they wield, and what are their potential weaknesses? Before that, I want to give a shout out to this video's sponsor, Navy Federal Credit Union. With Veterans Day just behind us, I've been thinking about how many perks we get after we leave the military, and not just those free meals at the chain restaurants every November 11th. A membership with Navy Federal is offered to veterans of all branches and their families, and the benefits that come along with it are lifelong. Besides all the financial benefits of banking with a credit union like great rates and lower fees, Navy Federal customizes its services specifically for the military community. For more than 90 years, their mission has been to help active duty veterans and their families reach their financial goals, and since many of their employees are military family members or veterans themselves, they know what's most important to the community. Navy Federal offers a wide variety of benefits ranging from award-winning 24/7 stateside member service to financial resources like our Best Careers After Service report to help veterans transition to civilian life, to being a top VA home loan lender. With over 2 million veteran members, Navy Federal Credit Union continues to support the veteran community with the financial resources that they deserve. To learn more, visit NavyFederal.org/veterans today. Navy Federal is federally insured by NCUA. You often hear Hezbollah called a non-state actor, but what does that really mean? Non-state actors actually include peacekeeping groups like non-government organizations, NGOs, massive corporations like Exxon that operate globally, criminal groups like Mexican cartels, terror groups, and hacker organizations like Anonymous. These are organizations operating around the world that are not sovereign states. In this case, Hezbollah is a non-state actor that operates from the nation of Lebanon. Lebanon is located in the Levant, and they border Israel to the south, Syria to the north and east, and Cyprus is just a short 260-kilometer boat ride away from their Mediterranean coastline. Today, they have a population of 5.5 million people, and Lebanon is currently facing a political and economic crisis, with their GDP dropping from $51 billion in 2019 down to $23 billion in 2023, putting into question how much appetite the Hezbollah group has for war right now. But we'll come back to Hezbollah's current situation in a minute. How Hezbollah rose to power starts in the 1975 Lebanese Civil War, when the country was embroiled in a non-stop series of conflicts between various religious and ethnic groups. The nation's large population of Shia and Sunni Muslims, Christians, Palestinian refugees from Israel, Syrian expatriates, all wanted to impose their vision of Lebanon. A large population of Palestinian refugees had taken shelter in Lebanon over the past decades in order to escape the many wars that marked the founding and early years of Israel. In fact, today, a total of 45%, or 200,000 of Palestine's United Nations refugees, are estimated to live in Lebanon's 12 refugee camps. In 1981, several subgroups of the Palestinian Liberation Organization, or PLO, had well-established militias in southern Lebanon. So the PLO had an easy time of setting up shop among the refugee population inside Lebanon. In 1982, Israel accused the PLO of orchestrating an attempted assassination of an Israeli ambassador in London, and they retaliated with air and artillery strikes at the PLO militia targets that were in southern Lebanon. The exchanges quickly snowballed into a full-scale Israeli invasion and naval blockade of Lebanon. There are claims that Israel invaded Lebanon with grand plans to install a friendly Lebanese government that would become the second Arab state after Egypt to sign a peace treaty with Israel. 60,000 Israeli troops crossed the border with the goal of pushing the PLO 40 kilometers back from northern Israel to create a buffer zone. Israeli forces, however, quickly advanced all the way to Lebanon's capital city of Beirut, where they laid siege. Despite the fragmented state of the PLO, the invasion actually triggered temporary alliances between the various factions in the civil war in Lebanon. In 1983, a peace agreement was signed to end the fighting between Israel and Lebanon. The terms of the agreement would mean that there would be safe passage for the PLO and its leaders to evacuate Lebanon and leave Lebanon, and Israel would also withdraw their forces from Lebanon. The United States and European allies sent a multinational security force to help stabilize the situation, hoping this would end the long, horrible Lebanese civil war. However, this left a dangerous power vacuum in southern Lebanon because the PLO only loosely controlled the militant groups in the region to begin with. With the PLO gone, the conflict morphed into a vicious guerrilla war between the remaining disorganized band of fighters and the Israeli Defense Forces. In this swirling mix of mayhem, a group of Lebanese Shia clerics who had participated in the 1978 Iranian Revolution formed what would become Hezbollah. With the fresh example of Iran's Islamic Revolution in their minds, they set about trying to transform Lebanon into an Islamic theocracy, and they wanted to expel all foreign forces from the country by any means necessary. In times of chaos and power vacuums, strong authoritarian groups will often attract the most followers. Between 1982 and 1985, these various roving gangs fighting in southern Lebanon took shape into the cohesive militia group called Hezbollah, or Party of God. They were united under the banner of resisting Israeli occupation. The CIA Central Intelligence Agency of the United States even created this map as a way of visually showing the different various factions located in Lebanon. The way it happened was disaffected Shiite minorities flocked to the more extreme Hezbollah group. So did Palestinian refugees and anyone who felt the existing factions weren't accomplishing anything for the actual people of Lebanon that wanted to get rid of the occupying Israelis. As membership in Hezbollah grew, it attracted the attention of the Iranian regime. So Iran is a Shia theocracy, surrounded by Sunni-dominated countries, and so they're eager to support a fellow Shiite group in the Middle East that could help their fight against their perceived enemies. And a major reason Iran is invested here is because they have long sought a land corridor to the Mediterranean through Iraq, Syria, and Lebanon. During the early 1980s, Iran even sent 1,500 members of their Revolutionary Guard to train and equip Hezbollah fighters, marking the first of many forms of assistance from Iran to Hezbollah. If you're wondering which Middle Eastern group first thought to use kamikaze bombing, the answer is Hezbollah. The tactic aligned well with the Islamic belief of becoming a martyr that will be rewarded in the afterlife for your actions. Hezbollah considers themselves to be an Islamic organization, so it's worth taking a look at how kamikaze-style attacks were born out of this group. In order to do that, we need to take a look at Islam. There's no way around it. Inside Islam's holy text, the Quran, there are several passageways that explain becoming a martyr or dying for the faith. Quote, "And if you are slain in the cause of Allah, or you die, surely forgiveness from Allah and mercy shall be better than what they hoard." I don't think members of Hezbollah would argue against this interpretation of their organization, because we know Hezbollah controls a group called the Martyrs Institute that pays money to families of fighters who use kamikaze bombs in battle. Every year on November 11th, Hezbollah celebrates Martyrdom Day, commemorating the sacrifice of all martyrs. I don't want to be flippant about this serious topic. Martyrdom doesn't necessarily have to mean kamikaze bombing. It can also mean fighting against Israel in conventional warfare, but we can't ignore this theological aspect to Hezbollah. However, from a purely military strategic point of view, the reason they did this type of attack is partly because they fight an asymmetric battle where they're far less powerful than their opponents. They use these extreme terror tactics to gain an upper hand and to strike fear into their enemies' hearts. If we ignore the ethics of Hezbollah's attacks for a second and look at it purely from a strategic point of view, they're seeking an advantage. When I deployed to Iraq, I used to call the enemy cowards because they would plant IEDs and bombs and detonate from safety 200 meters away instead of facing us always in a fair fight. One of my best friends in my squad said never underestimate your enemy, and they're not cowards. We drop bombs on them from the safety of 30,000 feet in the sky. They're evil, they're not cowards, and there's a difference. I think it's important to really understand the opposing forces' state of mind and their reasons for using certain appalling strategies. Hezbollah made United States and French peacekeepers targets of their gruesome new kamikaze tactic. On October 23, 1983, a massive truck bomb packed with 20,000 pounds of explosives destroyed large portions of the US Marine and French Army barracks at Beirut International Airport, killing 299 peacekeepers. The high-profile success of these attacks quickly made Hezbollah the role model of terrorist groups all over the world, and we'll see the ugly legacy of these tactics extend to today. And this is part of the justification for why Hezbollah is often classified as what we call a terror organization. It's important for you to know that this is still the subject of debate and controversy for some people who disagree and claim that they're freedom fighters. Some of the criteria to fit the definition of a terror organization is 1. Be a non-state actor, 2. Use unconventional warfare, 3. Have stated religious ideological goals, and 4. To purposely attack non-combatants. However, what really set the group apart from just another militia was their ability to play the soft power game. Hezbollah negotiated an uneasy truce with Syria, which was an ally of Iran, as well as a big player in the Lebanese civil war. Despite often conflicting goals and ideologies with Syria, Hezbollah proved they understood the value of diplomacy and politics when it suited their needs. This is why Hezbollah has been able to rise to such power, because at the end of the Lebanese civil war in 1990, all of the other various faction groups were forced to surrender their arms, but not Hezbollah. This is where a concept called the impotence of the Lebanese state comes in, and it was pointed out by Patrick Griffin in this great article. What this means is that in the absence of a strong state government that's capable of policing its internal factions, a group like Hezbollah has been allowed to operate with total impunity. Hezbollah hit a turning point when Hassan Nasrallah became their new Secretary General and proved even more radical and violent than his predecessor that Israel had taken out in an airstrike. He increased car bombings and hijackings and even attacked the Lebanese military that he believed was collaborating with Israel. Hezbollah's latest version of their manifesto declares that there can be no peaceful solution with Israel. That same year, Hezbollah put aside its condemnation of Lebanese politics because before they were calling it a corrupt to the core system, and they started to participate in a case of if you can't beat them, join them. They won all 12 seats in the government that they qualified for. Hezbollah used its status as a legitimate elected political party to argue against attempts to disarm the group. Something that I think is a common misconception about Hezbollah is they're not just a military organization. Hezbollah is known for being good at what's known as institution building, because Hezbollah currently operates 4 hospitals, 12 clinics, 12 schools, and 2 agricultural centers that provide farmers with technical assistance and training. It also has an environmental department and an extensive social assistance program. Medical care is cheaper in their facilities than in most of the country's private hospitals, and it's free for Hezbollah members. It's like their own version of the VA. It can be tempting to look at Hezbollah from one single angle, that they only exist in opposition to Israel. But from their perspective, their purpose is also to support the Shia community of Muslims in southern Lebanon. A Lebanese person named Sarir, for an interview with CNN, said that in her neighborhood, Hezbollah did everything that a government should do, from collecting the garbage to running hospitals and repairing schools. All of this is to say that one of Hezbollah's secret weapons is how intertwined they've made themselves in Lebanese society and the way that it functions. Their weapons aren't necessarily their greatest strength, and so to defeat them, I think it would take more than weapons in response. We have to remember during this period of time, Israel was still occupying a portion of southern Lebanon. In the United States congressional hearing called Assessing the Strength of Hezbollah, Richard Norton, who's a former U.S. Army colonel and a peacekeeper inside Lebanon, and a professor of international relations from Boston University, states that Israel's occupation of southern Lebanon for roughly 2 decades contributed to the radicalization of moderate voices and was counterproductive. When the Israeli Defense Forces withdrew from southern Lebanon in May 2000, they stated that it was done not because they were pressured into it, but it was a unilateral decision. However, Hezbollah was widely credited and even celebrated within Lebanon for playing the leading role in forcing Israel to leave. But the two continued to fight over a disputed Lebanese territory in the Golan Heights that Israel still occupied. Prior to the 2006 war with Israel, there were many voices inside Lebanon that were starting to ask, why does Hezbollah still need weapons? All of this came to a head finally on July 12, 2006, when Hezbollah launched a rocket barrage at Israeli border towns, but that turned out to be a diversion for their real plan. Well-trained Hezbollah fighters infiltrated the border fence and abducted 2 Israeli soldiers and left 3 other KIA. Hezbollah demanded the release of Palestinian prisoners in exchange for the safe return of their soldiers. Israel refused. The IDF launched a ground invasion into Lebanon to clear out tunnels and bunkers. The Israeli Air Force flew over 11,800 combat missions, double the number from the 1982 campaign, while the IDF fired 170,000 shells over the course of the war. Hezbollah's combat abilities were much more effective and disciplined than anyone expected, firing 4,000 rockets into Israel. An IDF soldier commented, quote, "Hezbollah fighters are nothing like Hamas or the Palestinians. They're trained and highly qualified." All of us were kind of surprised. Hezbollah fighters had body armor, night vision, and modern anti-tank guided missiles that destroyed 5 Merkava main battle tanks of Israel and seriously damaged a further 45. Hezbollah's intelligence organization was capable of triangulating IDF cell phones. The Israeli government proudly declared that they'd struck a decisive blow to Hezbollah that would set them back 20 years, while Hezbollah's leader claimed that they had achieved a, quote, divine and strategic victory over Israel. By 2007, Israeli Prime Minister Olmart's popularity in Israel had fallen to just 3%, probably as a result of the war. Israel's targeting of Lebanon's civilian infrastructure may have helped to further radicalize Hezbollah. This was a deliberate decision in the 2006 war, centered around the theory of General Gadi Asnat, that the best way to fight an asymmetric war was to respond with massively disproportionate force. Part of the effect of the 2006 war was that this battle validated the narrative that Hezbollah needed to keep their weapons as a deterrent against Israel, and all those people who used to be asking, hey, why do those guys need weapons? Now they didn't ask that anymore. And so since the end of that conflict, Hezbollah has been on an outright tear, growing exponentially stronger. They're said to be a state within a state that doesn't answer to Lebanon's government or military, but instead to Syria and Iran. Yes, the 2006 conflict destroyed a lot of Hezbollah's rocket artillery and missile inventory, but the arsenal has since been rebuilt and expanded. Iran helped Hezbollah go from 12,000 projectiles in 2006 to a current stockpile of over 130,000 long-range rockets. Many of those were upgraded from old, dumb Katsuya-style rockets to precision-guided smart munitions. This includes the Zalza 1 and 2 rockets that have a range of 210 to 300 kilometers. The Iranian Fateh 110 is Hezbollah's longest-range rocket, reaching 550 kilometers, with a 500-kilogram warhead. What that means is that the newest rocket can target anywhere in Israel's entire border, and all of Hezbollah's newest rockets are within range of Tel Aviv, from Lebanon's border, which is only about 128 kilometers away. On top of weapons deliveries and military training, the US State Department believes Iran provided $700 million worth of direct financial backing each year to Hezbollah. Hezbollah's numbers have grown from a small group to possibly being as large as 100,000 fighters today. Patrick Griffin wrote a great article analyzing Hezbollah that you can check out linked in the description. In it, Patrick states that, quote, the military branch of Hezbollah is organized under what's called the Islamic Jihad Organization, or Unit 910. This group is led by Talal, and it contains 45,000 fighters. Out of that, about 21,000 are full-time, and the rest are reserves. A major reason why Hezbollah has grown so strong is because of the collapse of neighboring Syrian state. While they don't operate main battle tanks inside Lebanon, the group is said to use T-55 and T-72 tanks inside Syria. The group had a weakness in small arms marksmanship and maneuver warfare, which has since improved thanks to operating in Syria alongside Russian forces. Hezbollah's tactical weapons have grown more sophisticated as well. Heavy anti-tank weapons like the Russian-made RPG-29 and Kornet ATGM have made their way into Hezbollah's arsenal, likely by way of Iran and Syria and allied Russian forces in Syria. Hezbollah has the advantage of not being blockaded by Hamas. What happens is Iran flies weapons and supplies secretly into Syria's airports, which are then driven across the border into Lebanon. Iran even has land supply routes that stretch through Iraq into Syria and then Lebanon, although the United States military tries to cut these choke points off, and that's why their bases are positioned at Tal Anaf. This is why you'll hear reports of Israel striking targets inside Syria, because Israel's best course of action here is to attack the weak supply lines that lead to Hezbollah. They can't attack Iran directly. Analysts believe Israel doesn't have the military power to invade Lebanon, destroy Hezbollah in detail, and then govern the state, nor do they want to. Hezbollah has now expanded their capabilities to even be able to attack aircraft and naval ships with the Russian Yakhon anti-ship cruise missiles and Pantsir S-1 surface-to-air missile batteries. These aren't Cold War hand-me-downs, but current generation systems that definitely pack a punch. But all these advanced weapons don't count for much in a conflict without the training and expertise to use them. Hezbollah has been an active participant in the Syrian civil war since 2012, supporting the Assad regime and gaining valuable combat experience in the decades-long conflict. It's estimated that at any time there's between 5,000 and 8,000 of Hezbollah's fighters in Syria. Hezbollah's fighters return to Lebanon to spread their knowledge and discipline, or stand up training camps in Syria to build up allied forces. Supporting Assad put them on the same side as the Russian military, which granted them access to Russian training and weapons. Syria and Hezbollah have had a rocky relationship since the early days of the Lebanese civil war in the 1980s, but keeping the Assad regime in power preserves the supply chain of advanced weapons along with the direct combat experience for Hezbollah's fighters. Today, Iran has constructed manufacturing sites inside Syria to supply rockets directly to Hezbollah in Lebanon. So we're seeing this alliance between Hezbollah, Syria, and Iran. However, the direct involvement of Hezbollah in the Syrian civil war is unpopular among the people of Lebanon, and this has been costing the group valuable domestic support. Pursuing wars and interests in other countries at the cost of Lebanese lives and resources is exactly what had frustrated the people of Lebanon and drove them into Hezbollah's arms in the first place. And the brutal Syrian civil war has deepened sectarian divisions within the Islamic world as well, with fellow Shia clerics and even founders of Hezbollah criticizing the group's violence against other Muslims while playing into Russia and Iran's hands. In order to understand Hezbollah, we need to try to see from their perspective for a moment. They promote an ideology that stresses the importance of resistance. They don't want to just resist against foreign occupation, but also resistance to injustice, corruption, and poverty. This is a worldview that is attractive to the Lebanese Shia community, which is a third of their population. As a result, Hezbollah's support within Lebanon and broader Muslim world has been steadily dropping in recent years because of their involvement in Syria. Public support for the group is down 20% since 2017. However, this recent reigniting of the Israel-Palestine conflict could turn that trend around, especially if Israel conducts another major operation into Lebanon or Gaza. That's the conundrum that everyone is in. The best way to defeat an organization like Hezbollah might not be with bombs and bullets. Even without much support of the people, Hezbollah's ties to Iran have made them a powerful military force that could cause serious damage to the IDF. I'm your average infantryman, Chris Cappy. Follow me at Cappy Army on Instagram. That's CAPPY Army on Instagram. And check out one of these videos while you're here. And I'll see you again in a couple of days.